Hi, Sylvia. So that, and I can make a statement. I'll wait a couple minutes until Zahira, you tell me that you're ready for me to speak about sort of the goal of tonight and my thoughts. But let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance, if you don't mind.
All right. So Councilmember Petros has called the meeting to order. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. May you all stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, for liberty, justice for all. I think I misspoke there. Never had to do that before. Okay.
All right, Councilman.
We lost Zahira, but let me just start by, first of all, I have an echo. Is there a reason?
If you're not speaking at the moment, please mute your microphones.
Okay, I think that's better. I wanted to start by just thanking you all for taking the time to be here and to listen and to give your input. The goal of tonight is to have a discussion about the new acquisition that the village made on Harbor Drive. There's 2 pieces of land that is going to be converted into a park. And we're hoping to get this usable as soon as possible and to do something a little bit different than's been done in the past, which is we've waited to have a perfect plan before putting a park in place. And this council feels pretty strongly that we want to make things usable as quickly as possible for the public, for the benefit of the public. But what that means is that the first phase is going to be something that is not the end result of this park. And we're going to try tonight anyway. I want to hear everybody's input, and I think everybody wants to hear. We gain knowledge from people's ideas, and I just want you to know that the beginning is not about a large project that would be very expensive. It's about getting a park open to the residents and also accommodating our desire to make this something that will help us with sea level rise and resiliency. So there's some things that will go under the ground eventually, and those need to be thought about even in this first phase, because we don't want to have to go back and spend money a second time or basically undo what we've done the first time. So just to give you a little bit of guideline for tonight, me personally, I have 3 main goals for tonight. One, first and foremost, is to listen to all the residents on this call and to hear your ideas, to answer your questions. And there's also people from the administration here that can answer questions and also address your concerns. The second part would be that I want us to have a unified understanding at the end of this meeting of what the village is looking to do in phase 1. I'm going to call them phase 1 and phase 2. And also the timeline of that phase. When can we expect as a community to have a park up and running that people can use? And then the last thing is to reinforce the concept that we do need to start addressing resiliency like never before, and that this is an opportunity for our community to not only have a beautiful usable space, but to have it be a functional space in a way that we haven't thought of before. And that doesn't mean that we need a large puddle of water. It just means that it needs to be able to absorb, and we need to be thinking about resilience as we move forward. So those are my 3 main goals. And I'm going to, I think the next thing, I know Steve Simon, who's sitting on the call here, has a presentation. Pete, I don't know if we should do public comments first or if we should let Steve show his presentation.
That's your call, Councilman.
I wonder if I can speak. Is it possible for me to speak before?
Of course.
Councilman Love?
Of course. Hi, Luis.
Hi, and thank you for calling this meeting, the workshop. It's very important as we move forward. As some of you know, always difficult decision, but we made a decision that this is an investment and not an expense on the beauty of our island. And in fact, it's directly related to an increase in property values over time. And second of all, I think it's part of it, for me anyway, I run on this policy of acquiring any and all green areas that are available for a reasonable price because of the above. And I'm happy that we have a process in place that you'll hear later on from the administration, I believe, in terms of what we ought to do to immediately have you use this park. We have a tendency to make things so perfect that we still, and expensive. And I'm an old believer in fact, the word now more admissible is open spaces, because the word park has been a little bit diluted by all kinds of structures and things that are not necessarily a park in the old-fashioned way, which is a green spaces. But that's my personal view of design. But this initiative is very important because we want to hear from you. It is your park. We finally put a sign up there. It is your taxpayers' money at work, and it's a great investment. And if we keep it simple and nice, we meet both the demands, the green area, and also address resiliency. So I commend you for tuning in, and Kathy for taking the initiative to hear you. And I'm looking forward to it.
Real quickly, before we go on, I see Brett here, also Moss, another council member. I don't know if you want to say anything, Brett.
No, I'm just very interested in listening to this workshop and seeing some of the ideas come out. So again, I reiterate what Councilmember Laredo said. Thank you, Katie, for putting this together, and looking forward to hearing everything.
Great, thanks. Okay, Steve, would you like to speak now?
Yes, I'm just going to show a quick series of slides. They're being loaded right now. Can everyone see that first slide? Katie,
Yes.
can you?
Yes,
okay.
I can see it perfectly.
Okay.
I would like to add too, I forgot to mention this, that we did name this park at our last meeting, and it is called Harbor Park. So you are right on point, Steve.
Okay. So I'm just going to give a quick introduction for everyone else to speak, and then later on in the meeting I'll have some comments of my own. But just as an overview, this is our second neighborhood park, and knowing that there are people from all over the island looking at this meeting, watching this meeting, this is a map, zoning map of Key Biscayne. You can see where the two parcels are. This is what they look like until quite recently. The house that's on an angle is 599 Harbor Drive, and the one that is more squared off with the roadways is 571. In terms of the usable green space, this is combined. This is quite a large space. It's 32,525 square feet, which is about approximately 3.5 times larger than our first neighborhood park, Hampton Park. Today, this is what it looks like. It's a demolition site. It's in the ending stages. The houses are down. And you can see some of the botanical elements which have been able to be preserved. And then the sign that's there, everyone who's driven by can see the sign that's there. And you can see there's 4 stages that are listed in boxes there. And the first stage has been checked off. We've acquired the property. And I must say that as I thought about this meeting tonight, and particularly after listening to Councilmember Petros's idea of getting community input, I started thinking that in fact, we have the neighbors who are providing input in the entire community as a whole. So I'm going to propose that we think of this sign, at least in our minds, as having another box, and that's community engagement. And the importance of community engagement prior to the design process is this is an opportunity for us to listen to each other's ideas about the use of this new park. what we would like to see there and how we would like to use it. It's really a critical step in the design process. And with that, I'll hold off till much later in the meeting to make some personal remarks.
Council member, you're muted.
I also wanted to ask Zahira if you were interested in speaking before we get general comments and so forth, because you sent us a very nice email with some ideas, and I know that this property abuts your property, and you've been very involved from the beginning and came to our meetings and were in support of the acquisition, which I very much appreciate. And if you'd like to speak now before we just take general public comments, I'd love to hear from you.
Sorry, sorry, here we go. So yes, so glad, thank you, Councilmember Petros, for organizing this workshop, and for all of those who are active and involved and volunteering and are here tonight. I appreciate it. My name is Zaira Acevedo Crespo. I'm a neighbor of 370 West McIntyre Street. I have lived in Key Biscayne for 25 years. The most recent 13 of those have been spent in this house, 370 West McIntyre. So about a year ago, we were asked to sign a petition supporting the purchase of the lots next to our house in order to build a green passive neighborhood park. We were told this would be similar to the Hampton Lane Pocket Park process, where neighbors were able to give input, what they wanted to see in the park after the lots were purchased. As it stands right now, the neighbors of Harbor Park have not had that privilege after this. The immediate neighbors haven't heard anyone. I mean, we haven't had a meeting of neighbors to see what's wanted. Of course, there's COVID, I understand that. So we were relaxed because of COVID. And then on June 19th, I heard of a meeting where Harbor Park the agenda. And I attended thinking that was our chance to, as neighbors, give our input. I was surprised to see renderings and architects in place and the park being called now a resiliency park instead of a neighborhood park, green park, or pocket park, whatever. And so my family and I, after the meeting, felt a sense of urgency, and we emailed the village council with the ideas we thought about for the last year and talked about with our neighbors and friends. We, the Key Biscayne taxpayers, are the owners, of course, of the double lot and the clients of the eventual designers, as I see it. So we should definitely have input in what we want to see in the park. We are all for resiliency and a resiliency aspect in the park, but it's not a resiliency park. It's a neighborhood park, a pocket park, like the one in Hampton, with a resiliency aspect or component or element to it. We definitely do not want to see what was shown on June 19th, I'm sorry, as a resiliency park where there were basically two huge ponds and they were talking about pumps, and there was really not a lot of green space to be enjoyed, used. And I think I am for resiliency, and I know we hired a resiliency person. I'm super glad, and I think that's something we have to do for the future. But we cannot only think about this park as being a panacea of the whole flooding of the center of the island will take care of the place. We have to think of other places that the village owns, I think, for the future to incorporate a resiliency aspect. Although places, you know, like the Village Green and the little pond in Crandon and East Enid, and there's another park in front of the Key Biscayne Beach Club. There's many, many options and places we have to integrate and think of resiliency definitely in the future. For this park in particular, we definitely would love to see what we were told. I mean, the idea of the Hampton Lane Park is super nice. It's a green, it's passive, it's a place to connect. We would want to see that as well. We want to see a place to connect with friends, rest after exercise. It is a big place, so we can divide it in zones. We thought about different zones for different usage for different age groups. Me in particular, so I'm 55, so I would be more on the relaxed side of the park, maybe. I thought about, and I've been told that this is input I've gotten from neighbors and friends. People want, maybe like a garden and meditation space. I personally was thinking, what can we do that is not a big structure that has to be maintained? We know we have problems sometimes with keeping up and maintaining gazebos and that sort of thing. So I was thinking about a walking labyrinth, which is basically shouldn't cost a lot to build or to maintain. It's basically pavers in the grass. It's something that can be used by everybody, and everybody I've showed it to has liked the idea. But that's like 1/3, 1/4 of the space, a garden. We can have a garden. Or telling me actually, neighbors, we can have maybe a community garden. Maybe we can have a garden club. Or people have been giving me good feedback. What we do not want is standing bodies of water. Those are mosquito breeding grounds. It's too much hardscape, and the hardscape that were shown in the other renderings, it was too much. We have researched a lot, and we can share with. I can start emailing council and anybody who wants what we have researched about, like for example, rain gardens that basically can be used to filter out the water without having standing water in it. And they use native plants, and they look beautiful, and actually they filter the water really well so that when it pumps out to the bay, it's cleaner. We've seen examples, University of Chicago, but we've also recently saw a project in a town called Manchester, Washington. I can email you what we saw. Very, pleasant to look at without being, too swampy ponds. One important thing that I have to say for us as a family, if there is a pump, there is no reason that it should be towards the back lot near the two houses that are adjacent to the property. We looked at all the pumps in the island, and we think, we took pictures, and all the pumps face the street, the sidewalks. We think that could be done. This is a big lot, a double lot. So the pump can be away from the two houses that are in the proximate, perimeter with the lots. And I said this to council when I spoke back months ago. The part of our house in particular, we have also that are in the same situation, but our house in particular, what we have next to that lot is our master bedroom. So I would not want the pump there. It can be placed somewhere else. But please, council members, you are the ones that will be voting, I guess, with in terms of design. We please ask you to make a note of this, because we really think it is unacceptable in such a huge lot to have a pump next to our master bedroom in the back of the lot. It shouldn't be. Yeah, as I see it, we walk through the pumps, and sometimes people don't even notice them. We have now, and we have taken pictures and everything. We can cover it with the hedge or whatever, so it's a little hidden. But I'd rather it be a nuisance, be an eyesore for someone passing by than a real a nuisance to the homeowners, a permanent nuisance. So basically, we do have to go forward. Definitely, we have to do it well. I don't think it can be rushed. It's a big project, and I really hope that there is transparency in the process of finding the designers. I really hope the council takes it out. Like, I remember the rec center, the bidding, the competition. We want people to really, and maybe it's Miami, and maybe it's some people outside of Miami, people that are doing this and are doing it well and have ample experience with landscape architecture and resiliency. It's a big project. We have to do it well. And so yes, we want you. And also, I thought, I'm thinking, when you have a project in front of you, or people are bidding for it, or whatever it's called, please look at the portfolios of those landscape architectures, because we have to make sure that they have experience, and we have to make sure that this will be a phenomenal park that will be enjoyed and we can be proud of for years to come. So thank you, council members, for hosting the meeting. Fellow Key Biscayners, we do belong to a great community. We deserve a park that has ample green space for us and our families and friends to enjoy. I don't know if my husband wants to say anything. Sorry, thank you.
No, that's fine. I wanted to address a couple things, and I thank you for bringing up, I'm going to ask the village to come in on the concerns about the pump. One of the things I also wanted to say to you is just to understand that the fact that we have more green space, these two lands and over 32,000 square feet of green space is a step towards good resilience in and of itself, because to decrease structures. And so when we speak about the fact that we are looking to increase resilience, that in and of itself speaks to that fact. And it doesn't mean that we're necessarily looking to create retaining ponds. And I completely understand what you're saying as far as concerns about mosquitoes and breeding grounds for bugs. And that would not be something that we would desire either. So I hear what you're saying.
Yes.
And I hope you feel like you will be heard, and we certainly understand we need to take into consideration the people that are surrounding the park as well.
Yes.
So,
and thank you,
yes.
Councilmember Petros. And I have to say, I have met all the immediate neighbors of our surrounding the park. They're all very positive. They all want to be part of the process. They want to be part of the solution. There's people that really like green space. They said, we can help keep it up. I mean, they really, but we just want to be part of the process. Definitely. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Does your husband want to speak? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Bernardo?
Cut him off. Bernardo?
May I ask a question?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, obviously my wife is, I totally agree with her, and obviously much more eloquent than I would be. I did write a couple of things that I had in mind. Some things may be items that are repeated, but let me go over some of the points. And I think I talk a little bit more about the basins, water basins, some of the issues and concerns that we have there. But I also want to express some of the real positive things that we see going forward with the park. So what I want to say is that, since we learned about the village purchasing the properties, we really have educated ourselves, as you mentioned. Can you guys hear me correctly? Yes? Okay. So we have participated in the different council meetings. We have spoken to the neighbors, with some of our ideas and concerns. We have our two daughters. They're here. You probably can see them, Camila and Cata. They live in their grown daughters. They live in California. Camila is actually an architect. It's been very nice, with the COVID situation. They're here working from home. So as a family, we really have had a chance to think through, what we really want to see in this property that sits next to our home. We've been big users for lives of all the recreation of the village, daughters that play soccer, we go to the beach. So we do are very pro green space, and I want to thank Pat and definitely Dr. Simon for all the work of bringing these properties forward. So really the village residents, I feel, are very in favor and excited about this green neighborhood park with very passive components. It's on the side of the island that I would say is a little more passive than maybe by the village green. And I truly believe that if designed with the neighbors' input and concerns in mind, Harbor Park can be a wonderful green space where people can go and sit on the shade of this beautiful Royal Poinciana trees. And I'm glad that they kept, that it's going to be a welcoming space for fathers or mothers to stroll their babies into the park. Obviously, it's in the middle of the Harbor Drive, which has become a sort of a linear park, so a lot of people walk and run. So, I know the council member Petros, that you like to run as well and so forth. It can be a great place for people to meet before a run, or for the older ones, for a passeata on a Wednesday night, just meet at the park and go out for a passeata. A great place maybe to refill a water bottle, and obviously to have a green space, green area that looks more like a small green area where kids can go and kick a ball, play with a frisbee, and maybe if we design it in the right way, we can have some sitting areas so that they don't have to be benches at all, where groups can gather and maybe have a Tai Chi class on a Sunday, or a outdoor yoga class. So that's kind of our vision, and I think in many ways, from everybody we spoke to, people are in agreement with that. So that's let's say that's the easy part. If you can decide, and I think listening to a lot of the council meetings and listening to Council Member Loredo, as far as we are. We've lived in the Key for many years, and we are preoccupied at the maintenance of a lot of our property. So we want to make it green. It's a green park, with not too many different features that need a lot of maintenance. Even though you're going to have issues, you're going to have issues of noise, you're going to have issues of, privacy and security for the neighbors. There may be issues about parking, around the property. We can all, I think, take care of that. I do want to tell you about our concerns, which mentioned by my wife. I think, especially in my case, we are totally against a pump station at that location that serves a large part of the island. We don't want a large stormwater basins at this property. We don't want a pond. We don't want standing pools of water. We don't want that the park be graded in a big depression area. You can tell me that no, there's going to be a pump and the water is going to be pumped out, and and I'll tell you that there's going to be chemicals, sediments, there's going to be waste that's going to collect in those areas, and people may say, well, there's chemicals to treat that. Really, in most, and I've done a lot of reading about this, what kind of resiliency options we have. In most cases, you'll have a breeding ground for mosquitoes. We're in South Florida, and for other pests. And we are not totally opposed to a resiliency element for this park. And, I think that was kind of the way that it was discussed during most of the council meetings. I think the selling point for most of you guys, and Councilman Loredo just mentioned it, I think you just mentioned it as well, green space. Everybody's looking for a green space, everybody's looking for a park. There was a mention that these properties are in a low elevation area, that there could be some resiliency elements. But it wasn't, the major design of the park wasn't going to be around the resiliency element. And we were really worried when we saw the building and zoning presentation with two large depressions, ponds, taking most of the green space away. And we were thinking, where they actually in the design painted the water. So, you have standing water there. That is a huge problem. I mean, we had, I remember Dr. Simon mentioning many occasions when he came over to visit us, and even in the meetings that, of this proximate theory of that, that some Professor Compton, I believe you mentioned that, talks about the increasing property values to neighboring properties of a park. I kind of agree with that. A well-maintained green park could possibly, we're not counting on that, could possibly increase the value of our properties. I'm not sure that research talks about basically a water pump, a station in the middle of a residential zone in Key Biscayne. So you've made a really big investment. It's an important investment. I think it's going to be great for the community. At the same time, you are investing in lots that, 6 months ago where there were two homes there. We could deal with neighbors, that for the most part, sort of kept up their yard and so forth. Now it's the village coming in to build something here. So I don't think it's necessarily the place to make it be the solution for stormwater issues for half of the village. I understand that you guys and Building and Zoning has been looking at the K8 for that, and they haven't received answers. That sounds more to me like a place where maybe I want to do something like that. So, in conclusion, we're for a green passive space at Harbor Park that I'm sure that if it's well maintained, and that's a big if, it's going to bring some goodwill to neighbors and even possibly increase the price of the properties. I'm also pretty certain that if the park is used as a large stormwater runoff collection area, it will have totally the opposite effect. So, if you're gonna do something invasive, not the type of pumps that you talked about even in the last meeting, Councilman Petros, where you said that you won't even see the pumps. I remember you saying that. And it's something that looks more or less what we've seen in the rest of the community. That sounds something that we can deal with as long as it's not next to our property line, next to our bedroom. But anything else that is more invasive and has to do with a really large collection area, you really need to bring top architects that know what they're doing, and you got to spend money, and that's going to cost a lot of money to do it in that way, especially if you want to do it in a residential area. So I'm sorry for taking so much of your time, but those were my points.
No, thank you for giving us your concerns and also your vision. And I think you both sound extremely reasonable. And I'm gonna have Jake speak at some point about current day pumps. I'm not sure if you're aware of the pumps that exist on the other side of the island on Ocean Lane and in the Holiday Isle district. I'm saying it incorrectly right now, but they've been there many, many years.
Yeah.
And I would assume there's been improvements, and I would fully want to understand that before that is in place. That would definitely not be phase one either, because that is a large investment in an infrastructure underneath the ground, is my understanding. So go ahead. You're muted.
May I ask a question, Katie, so I can follow this? Because yes. I'm quite surprised that, let me just say something and ask a question. This is a very difficult vote, as you know, and I voted for it because I believe in open green spaces. Simple as that. I'm not too intelligent. I don't want to pay $2 million for a design, because I'm also looking to cut our budget. I'm distressed that you continue to call this, and I guess we failed you, Resiliency Park. I voted for a park. If resiliency came as an added value, and if you listen to the transcripts on the purchase, that it was an additional value, that then we should maximize that, but it should be not even spoken about as a resiliency park or anything else. I know where I stand because I'm very clear on my views, and I think the council, when they voted, it's a park. The rest is gravy. And we're listening to you to where it goes. So my question then to the manager, if she's here, or Katie, you may know, you're talking about seeing a rendering and a whole program included, and it's
okay,
to whom?
Okay, I'll give you a little bit of a background there, Luis, and everyone else needs to mute themselves. What happened one of the things that we asked of our administration is to move quickly on projects. And so Jake had a firm that he's worked with before come up with a very loose rendering with an idea. And of course, when you present an image and an idea, it can be thought of as something that has moved farther along than it is or has. And he presented it, I believe, first to the beautification board. And then there was a meeting that included the Parks and Open Space Board. And that's the meeting that everybody attended and saw what they were looking at, which leaned more heavily on the resiliency side than the park side. So I completely understand the concerns that people had. And that was one of the impetuses for this meeting, was to make sure that we basically set the record straight, tell our community that we aren't moving forward with retaining ponds and all of these things that were being thought about and presented in a picture. And so this is a step back and an attempt to clarify and put things forward so that the community feels informed, especially those people living around this area, as well as those that are interested, and that we give them a timeline too, by which we hope to have a usable space, because now the houses are down. And the other thing is, we do not want to be in a situation where we are indecisive and we just end up with 2 empty lots with houses down, without sod and the things that you're looking for, Luis, to make a park usable. Does that help?
It helps, and I commend you for your patience and your persistence in this matter, but I cannot lie to you that I am not so deeply disappointed at the administration. By the way, citizens that are on this call, this is the first time that I am an elected official for whom the manager and the people work for have heard about this plan and actually have never seen it. So we spend so much time, it seems to me, on doing things because we make mistakes. They have 2 meetings for this thing. I never got an invitation. I've never seen a plan. And now I understand why they're all talking about resiliency, but
so maybe what we could do,
I can't be surprised anymore, but that is what this is for you all. This was purchased to be a park. It was purchased to be I repeat myself, a passive park. And if we can get aesthetically acceptable and technically acceptable resiliency plus, that's a plus. And that's how I voted. And I have not seen any plans, and I'm disappointed that the administration did not reach out to the other 6, or maybe they did. I didn't get any call. I never seen the plan. So now I understand the content of the meeting. Thank you for explaining it, because I was kind of surprised. And let me just tell you that the issue of passive is also important, because some of us are trying to control the ongoing growth of our budget. So we don't, I know that we rather have a Rolls Royce, but if we can only afford a Chevrolet and it's pretty good, that's a pretty damn good piece of property to be a green passive park. And I think that's where I think we're all 7 are going. So somehow it got diverted. I apologize, and I thank Katie for catching it and stopping it now, because that's not the intent.
Also, we'll move on here, but I want to say, I don't think it makes sense to necessarily put an image out there, or the image that was shown, because it was meant to be a starting point. It's not the starting point that people are comfortable with. So I'd rather have this conversation and then have a tweak that can go forward, as opposed to talking about an image that is probably not relevant at this point. So moving on a little bit, I would like to ask Pat, who I saw on here somewhere, real quickly. She is the chair of the Parks and Open Space Board, and she was here. I don't know, did she leave?
I'm here.
Oh, okay, there you are, Pat. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to speak, and then as we move forward, I would like everybody to try to limit themselves. I know we don't have a 3-minute time limit. I wanted to give longer to people who were in these meetings and in positions where they've been walking through this, but I do want to hear from most everybody, and I don't want people to lose interest. So let's try to keep a time limit as much as possible. Go ahead, Pat.
Thank you. I'll be brief. yes, first, thanks to Mayor and Council for having the vision to go forward and purchase this property. It is an extremely exciting opportunity in that it's a larger green space than we had dreamt that was possible for quite some time. It's located along a heavily trafficked area for everyone in the Key. Certainly we've seen that during this time of COVID-19. People all over the community are taking advantage of walking on Harbor. And so obviously every location for public space has necessary parameters and challenges. And so I'm so grateful to Bernardo and Zaira and other neighbors for expressing what they feel. And obviously, as you know, living adjacent, it's extraordinarily important that we make sure that we take care of the neighbors and we're sensitive to them. So I want to make sure that we take, in the beginning of this public input process, that we allow ourselves to dream the dream. You know, what is the dream of this park? We don't get chances to do that later. So while there have been sketches and conversation starters, I really want to invite everyone to envision what would be amazing here, what would really be an inspiration, something innovative, something perhaps out of the box that we haven't done before. And the fact that we, in addition to having an amazingly beautiful big green space, that we have the potential for flood mitigation, resiliency, has inspired some brainstorming around celebrating water potentially in this park, whether that is fountain, waterfall, rain garden, other wonderful suggestions that have popped up here and there. So when, yeah, we can focus, obviously we have to identify the challenges, the potential problems, and navigate those. But I just want to hope that everyone will take a moment to envision what might be possible here that we haven't done before.
Thank you, Pat. I think, Pete, well, Andrea, do you want to speak before anybody else, given what you've heard? The village manager,
yes.
Andrea Aga.
Hi.
Okay.
Thank you for unmuting me. I was trying to chime in earlier, but I wasn't able to unmute myself. So good evening, Andrea Aga, village manager. Thank you all for being here. Just to clarify what my direction to the team is to demo the properties as quickly as we can and make the space usable. That was it. There was nothing beyond that. So I commend staff for taking the initiative of putting some sketches together and trying to give some indication of, you know, what the future infrastructure might lend itself to at the park, and if that created any unrest in the community. Definitely not our intention. We're just trying to make the space available and usable, and that was it. And with regard to some of the technical questions on how the potential pumps might work, Jake Osman is an engineer and our public works director. He can speak to that. But Councilmember Laredo, to your point, I hope you are not disappointed, because to the contrary, what we've done here is try to move expeditiously. And I think what happened was we got a little bit overly zealous. And I think that put us in a position where folks thought the train had left the station, and it has not. We're just trying to make the park usable and get that open space made available to the community as quickly as possible, and then go through the longer term planning process for the future. Thank you for the opportunity.
I think just to dovetail on that also, people should feel comfortable that for the long range vision and the aspirations that Pat's talking about, there will be, hopefully we will be past COVID. We can have a charrette, because that's typically what happens, where people can come and brainstorm on a larger plan idea. But that doesn't mean we can't mention things tonight, because I think it's always good to share ideas. and I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity. So right now, what I'm going to do is ask Pete, who typically takes callers, to come in and ask put the public in space. The way this is supposed to work is that the public is supposed to call in on a phone number, and I believe it was listed and given to people so that they could speak, because we can't have too many people just on the call with the password. And we don't want someone to come in who's not part of our community and not interested in our park to come and basically hijack this meeting. It is being televised live on channel 77, I believe. So Pete, if you could take it over from here.
No problem.
I apologize, Councilmember Petros. I see here in the video there are two raised hands, Valentina Marble and Marcelo Coscarelli. Can they? Does that work? Raising the hands or no?
I'm gonna go ahead, Pete. Pete, I'm gonna let him balance it, and then if somebody is excluded at the end, we'll make sure that everybody gets their time. And I see Joanne Young also is interested in speaking, and Mauricio. If you could just, I think, do your best to intersperse between the phone calls and the people on video, that would be helpful.
Yes, council member. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you are watching this on channel 77, AT&T Uverse, or online, the phone number to call to speak will be 305-365-7569. And the meeting ID is 231-627-8415. And if you do wish to speak off of the phone, please to raise your hand, dial *9 during that call. So again, if you're interested in addressing council or anyone else here during this workshop, please press *9. If you are on the Zoom application, please hit the raise your hand button. It's usually located at the bottom of your screen. And that way I can actually see it on the list here. Refrain from raising your hand on camera if best. All right. Madam Council Member, I will start with Marcelo Carcellini. Sir, please, for the record, do state your name and your address.
Okay, my name is Marcelo Coscarelli. I'm a resident of 580 Harbor Drive, which is the property across the street from the park on Harbor Drive. This is my wife, Maria Silvia. We have been residents of Key Biscayne since 2002. Been in this house for about 5 years. First of all, I'd like to thank the entire community for the point where we got. I think it is a major accomplishment that we are a community that can invest in a space like this. And I would like to second wholeheartedly the words of Ms. Woodson in terms of dreaming big. I think it is, that's definitely something we should do. I think this can be an inspiration for other initiatives like this in the community. I think it can be a place that we can all cherish. And if you get to a point that there is something that is loved by the community, I think it is going to be so much easier to keep and to do other things. I just wanted to take the opportunity to share what my dream would be, right, as an input for the council and for the community. The key message from my key request is we really work hard to make this park functional, and functional from two fronts. Functional first and foremost as a park where people want to go, that people feel that this belongs to them, because I think to the extent that this happens, this is going to be so much easier to upkeep, so much easier to maintain. People are going to take care of it. And so for this to happen, it needs to be a place where people can go and really enjoy it. So I am all for open space, green space. Obviously, I want botanical elements, but not so much that people cannot use the park and relax. I really respect the ideas in terms of having yoga space, a community gathering space, but also a place where kids can go and just not organize sport, but can kick a ball, throw a frisbee. So that would be amazing. My kids were so excited about the idea of the park. They're looking forward to be able to enjoy it. And I'm sure that they'll really enjoy all the kids all from the island to come and enjoy it. The second point of functional is resiliency. I have to acknowledge that this is one of the worst spots in Key Biscayne for flooding. And I think that we do need to address this for the sake of the whole island and the whole community. What I say about this is that I also agree that this needs to be an important but secondary element to having a park, right? And I would encourage the council to take their time and really listen to experts. I am no expert, I'm no engineer, I have no experience in that, but I would like to believe that once we are set and done, that we took the time to find the most attractive, the most effective solution for that aspect of resiliency, not sacrificing what we want to have as a true park. Thank you very much.
All right, Madam Council Member. I believe Mauricio Salazar also wished to speak.
Hello.
Please state your name and the address for the record.
Yeah, my name is Mauricio Salazar. I live in 140 Buttonwood Drive. I have been a Key Biscayne resident for the past 35 years. I'm a civil engineer by profession. I have done a lot of work here on private residential properties on Key Biscayne over this course of 35 years. I don't want to talk about the pump station or master plan because there are some colleagues that have done the work and I assume that they are doing right, okay? And I'm assuming that the work they did was done without considering that the Harbor Park was being planned, okay? I'm going back from years, okay? Now, I wanna give you a little bit of history, okay? About 3-4 years ago, I was contacted by Dr. Simon regarding the Corner Park, the Hampton Lane Park, okay? That park was done with local resources, okay? This Harbor Park is going to be a neighborhood park, and I would like to have, because there are a bunch of architects and engineers that live and work on Key Biscayne, okay? I can mention, for example, Weber Studio. They did the master planning for the tennis center, okay? And if they did the tennis center, they can do the Harbor Park. So I don't see any need to go and search for outside sourcing, okay? When we did the Hampton Lane Park, we did it pro bono because it's our neighborhood and it is for the village, okay? And we got a very nice result. We saved the village a lot of money. I don't see any reason why the village has to go and outsource from companies that are not local on Key Biscayne.
Okay, Mauricio, thank you, first of all, for the work you've done with Hampton. I would like to try to keep this a little more specific to ideas for the park and the vision. And given your experience and expertise, do you have some specific things that you would like to see us do at this park?
A park, not a pump station.
Okay.
I would like to have a park, not a retention pond.
Okay.
Okay.
I hear you. Thank you.
All right, Madam Council Member, the next speaker will be Valentina Marmol.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Carlos Salles, my wife Valentina Marmol. We've been residents of Key Biscayne since 2011, although we've been on and off the island for many, many years. I would like to echo what the gentleman. We live adjacent to, on the other side of the park, right behind the park on the West Enid side. We're right next to where the first house was torn down. So we're very concerned. I really would like to echo what the last gentleman said, in the event that we also would not like a pumping station or a park where you're going to have ponds and where you can have potentially have breeding ground for mosquitoes. I mean, we live right next door. We have kids. I have grandchildren that come here. We welcome the idea. We think it's a great initiative that the village has taken to create this park, but we want to echo what really everybody and all the neighbors have said, to make it a green space, a space where people can gather and be comfortable and that we don't have to be dealing at 6 o'clock in the afternoon or at 9 o'clock in the morning with invasion of mosquitoes or plague that would basically impact the capacity of people to take advantage of this initiative that the village has taken. I really don't have anything much more to add because I think a lot of the points that I feel strongly on have already been raised, and I don't want to be repetitive. I'm going to ask my wife to see if she has any other questions or comments that she would like to have.
Yeah, I have a comment since this is the first meeting that we joined about the park. I received this invitation to the meeting today where it says that the next phase of Harbor Park will be for design a transitional passive park so that the village can deliver it quickly and open space to the neighborhood. I wanted to make sure that I was understanding what this means. Like transitional passive park means that you don't have the definitely design of the park. So are you thinking to make something temporary until you have the final project? That is my question, because when I read this, it's like, and I see workers here every day, our house is shaking. So they're really working fast. And I just wanted to know if this is like a previous project of what the park is going to be eventually. That's my question.
Andrea, can you speak to where we are and what we're doing?
Sure.
What you're doing?
Right. So my objective was to make it usable. That was it. So that it's properly graded, so that it doesn't, rot, and so that you don't have unnecessary ponding water or flooding. So that was my objective, and that's my intent. So we're taking in all this input, and all of this will go into the future design for the planning of the park.
Yeah, we'd really appreciate that these concerns that are being raised by the neighbors, that they be taken into account, that we not be presented with a fait accompli, this is it, and you have no further voice.
Of course.
That we've had, that we have with regards to this. And I think this has been a very good initiative, and I very much welcome all the comments that our neighbors and colleagues in the area have said about this, because it's key to us. I mean, we live right next door to it, and we want to enjoy it and not have it to be a nuisance to us.
As do we.
Are you going to be presenting to us the final project when you have it? To make it?
You'll have input from the get-go. This is the first of I'm sure many meetings where we can get the feedback. And just to be clear, the council has not authorized any design. There are no, everything we've done has been, modest investments of staff time just to really try to finish up the demo, properly grade the property, maybe use some reusable materials that would become part of the pathway, I think, that was presented. The idea was that it's a material that can ultimately become part of the fill when we have to regrade. So that was our intention.
Okay.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pete?
All right, Madam Council Member, the next caller is actually a phone number with the last 3 digits being 570. Again, those last 3 digits are 570. Caller, please state your name and address for the record. Caller, you're going to have to speak up.
Charles Sherman, 324 West Heather Drive. Hello?
Yes, sir, you are live.
We do hear you.
Charles Sherman, 324 West Heather Drive. I would like to know, in terms of security for this park, whether there's a fence. Charles Sherman, 324 West Heather Drive. That's correct. I would like to know, in terms of security for this park, whether there's a fence.
Sir, if you could just possibly lower the volume on either your television or your computer, however you're listening, because we're hearing the feedback.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Yeah. So my question is, given that Harbor Drive is one of the main corridors on this island, and people tend to go a little faster because the speed limit is 30 miles an hour, Is there any fence envisioned in terms of security for the possibility that little kids might be dashing out into the road unseen? I'd be curious to know if a security fence is envisioned. Thank you.
I will take the question, Andrea and Jake. If I'm wrong, you can let me know. I don't think that we were looking to do a security fence at this point. Again, if that is something that gets found to be necessary, and if there's a concern about that, it is certainly something that could be looked at. Andrea, have you discussed this in any way?
No, we had no intention of putting a fence up at this point, no. And hopefully it doesn't become a problem.
I would add that there's no fence at the park on Hampton Lane. I recognize that is not a street that's as busy and the speed limit's 5 miles an hour less. So I'm glad you brought that up. And I think it's something to be thought about and to make sure that we are doing the best we can to make the residents secure no matter what, even in phase 1. So thank you.
And there might be, you know, design elements. You might be able to berm up, you know, the earth and do other things that aren't as, you know, uninviting as a fence that might meet the same safety intent. So thank you. And also everybody, the comments we're taking it in, we're documenting everything. So all of this will go into the process as it continues.
Okay, Pete, next person.
All right, Madam Council Member, our next caller is Camila Z. Acerbal Acevedo. Ma'am, please state your name and address for the record.
Hey guys, this is Camila Cebal. I live in 370 West McIntyre Street. I'm the daughter of Zaira and Bernardo. Can I share my screen really quick? Because I'd like to show what I shared the council members about a couple weeks ago.
All right, go ahead.
Thanks. Can everyone see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay, it's loading probably.
There we go.
All right. Okay, so really quickly, this is what was presented in the June 19th meeting. I know we don't want to go back, but I think it's important to, since this is being called a starting point, I think it's important to kind of constructively criticize this so we know what we don't want and what we will want for the next iteration of the design. So obviously a lot of people had concerns about these two standing water stations. And then my dad previously mentioned, I'm an architect, but I don't practice in Florida anymore. As of November, I moved to San Francisco. So I'm just kind of coming at this as a neighbor with some architecture experience and training. But yeah, so these paths that they laid out, they're about 8 to 10 feet wide. So it's a lot of hardscape. And the way they meander, there's no real like meaningful design or any sort of, I guess, intention to look at anything particularly interesting. Just these holes that in that meeting, they mentioned that it would be at a 1 to 6 slope. So for reference, a handicap ramp is 1 to 12. So that would be twice as steep. So you cannot kick a ball here. A kid can't play here or anything. So it's completely unusable. And I'm not sure that someone would really do this route repeatedly day in, day out. So yeah, so that's the starting point. Moving on. So we saw that, and then over the weekend, my family got together, and me, since I have some drawing ability, I just wanted to come up with some sort of concept to kind of get the council to kind of see another alternative. So not that this is like set in stone, but just to kind of give a really basic different concept. So the way we kind of organized this was maybe the lot could be divided in different zones. So we kind of label them here 1, 2, and 3. So these are the existing beautiful poinciana trees. They provide a lot of shade. So we called this the shaded rest area. And then this is the walking labyrinth that my mom was talking about. So this could be the more quiet meditative space that maybe elder people in the community could use. And then for the younger people, kids, and that want to play a ball, they really, I think, would have more room for activity and a more open lawn. You know, this design isn't perfect, and there's no access for a person in wheelchair So it could be definitely improved, but I'm just trying to give you, I was trying to give you a different idea. And yeah, and then, so the idea of the open lawn would be similar to that of a college quad. So lots of activity, and this is the kind of activity that we envision in it. So that's the area number one. And then this is the rain garden idea that we were discussing. So you don't have to have 2 holes in the ground with water to collect water. There's other methods to collect water that has been done all over the United States and in other countries such as Holland that have to deal with water a lot. So I really implore that the architects that are selected in this could do more research and do something that is probably more interesting to look at. So that's that idea. The walking labyrinth is an idea that we have that we've shared with a lot of our neighbors, and it seems like a lot of them are open to it. But if it's not this necessarily, maybe it's just a more meditative space, but we do like the idea of just having something that's low, that requires low maintenance, and is an interesting amenity. And then really quickly, this is the poincianas that are existing. So they're very big, beautiful trees. So that's the kind of shaded rest area that we are envisioning. And then I just wanted to mention one thing. This tree right here, which I got from Google Earth, which was existing before the demolition started, it's not there anymore. So I was also wanting to ask who gave the go-ahead and who approved that the destruction of a healthy, mature tree. So yeah, I just thought it was important to share this with everyone else. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Can Andrea or Jake, do you know what happened to the tree?
I can't speak to the tree, but I would like to say thank you. And this is one of the things that I love so much about Key Biscayne, the fact that the attention of what you just brought attention to something that I think is so important for the community to know is how important design elements impact both function and aesthetics of a space. And your creativity has not fallen on deaf ears, and we thank you for your contribution and for that insight. With regard to the tree, that I cannot speak to. Jake, are you able to speak to that specific tree?
Trees are marked to be protected by professionals, so I'll find out if it was a healthy tree. If not, I'll find out.
What we tried to do was preserve all healthy trees and all trees that were, only if there was a sick or an invasive tree, did we want to eliminate it. So my guess would be that it was either not doing well or not a native or sort of an invasive species, but we will jot down your information and we'll get back to you. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Andrea and Jake. Pete?
All right, Madam Council Member. Next caller is Mr. Alan Fine. Sir, if you could just please go ahead and state your name and address for the record.
Yes, Alan Fine, 525 Allendale. Just great work. I was concerned about a couple of comments. First of all, there was always, I have to say, when Steve brought this potential purchase to our attention, it was always with the idea that we've got a very, very serious flooding problem on this side of the island. If you, I'm sure most, if not all of you, have seen the Miami Herald story about 10 days ago that showed a map of, basically where the real flooding problems are in the barrier islands. Miami Beach was all in red. All of eastern Biscayne Bay side of Miami was all in red. The only part in red here was the Mackle section, really. And in that regard, we always talked about this in that regard. And certainly, I'm sorry to hear my friend Luis was disappointed with the staff, because the staff basically did what the committee and the council told them to do, which was, let's get this process going. And they came up with something. And the next thing we came up with when we had our meeting in June was we all, most of us seemed to agree. I remember the comment was made that we were looking at the lot across from the village hall that's been sitting there in the community center, that's been sitting there for 10 years now, as we all tried to come up with a plan on what to do. And the idea was, okay, we were going to have this workshop to get everybody's ideas to get this going. Okay. But I think Luis, who I've seen, has walked away. And I agree that, you know, we don't want to see this sit around for a long time. And what I would like to see happen based on all this is, okay, if we are going to spend some time talking about some of these ideas, I thought the last presentation was actually pretty interesting. But my God, in the meantime, let's throw some grass down. We've taken the houses down. Let's grade the property. Let's throw some grass down. Let's have a park that people can use. And if we want to come to a phase 2 that's going to involve, you know, the rain garden ideas seem to get to the same point. Some people have talked to me to the fact that you would have to go down below the clay surface, and that wouldn't necessarily be visible, but we would need to get down below the clay surface so that the runoff would actually run somewhere besides just through the pumping station. So I actually thought Camila's idea was pretty good in that regard. But my goodness, please, I beg you, while we do this, let's throw down some grass. Let's have a working park we can use by September 1st, September 15th. This doesn't have to drag on for years and years. I'm begging you, please, let's get something done now.
Thank you, Alan.
If I could say one more thing, you know, Pat and I always go through this. We went through it with the rec center years ago, and the old saying that I would keep reminding her and everybody involved was, don't make the perfect the enemy of the good. Okay, there's no reason we can't have good 2 months from now. Okay, let's get going. Come on.
Well, I do think everybody's in agreement, Alan. And I started off saying that one of the things I wanted by the end of this meeting was an understanding of what phase 1 meant for everybody and what a phase is and the timeline by which to get there. So
okay, my suggestion, with all due respect, is that the timeline should be September 15th, and that we should grade it and grass it, and then if everybody wants to plan for a while, go to it. But that's my suggestion for phase 1.
Katie,
Okay,
may I
Yes.
speak?
Well, I'm going to let Pete run it, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor, was that you? Vice Mayor? No? All right, Madam Council Member, our next speaker is Patricia Romano. Ms. Romano, please state your name and your address for the record.
And unmute yourself first. Try again.
Mute.
There, you got it.
Okay. Okay, Patricia Romano, 361 Beechwood. Following the Alan Fine advice, remember, we are in the coronavirus era. We need open space. We need green space where everybody can walk to and enjoy the outdoors, since it's so necessary so we can stay healthy. So please don't make this a bureaucracy park. but do it fast so everybody can enjoy one more piece of land that we have acquired in Key Biscayne. That's it.
Thank you very much.
Peter?
Mr. Simon, please.
Hi. I'm going to show a couple more slides and address this concept of one, which I'm very happy to hear you phrase, Councilmember Petros. I'm really enjoying this meeting that we are getting the community engagement. Can everyone see this screen?
No, sir.
Not yet. Yes.
No. So it's wonderful to hear this, listening to everyone's ideas. Camila, I loved hearing your input, everyone's input. And as we move and gather this information, one of the things that perplexed me after the last meeting when there was such an emphasis on what looked like the needed design had to be, I reached out to Professor Obesekara at FIU, who's the director of Sea Level Solutions Center and a research professor in sea-level solutions. And I think he's probably known to our resiliency officer as well. And what I wanted to ask him, since we're having some people talk about what's the balance between resiliency and traditional park elements, I said, can a resiliency park and a traditional park be integrated through design to such an extent that the focus on determining potential uses by future park visitors doesn't have to be limited to choosing one or the other? And the professor answered that I totally agree that it isn't a matter of either or. And he talked about concepts that I'll only show on the screen that I'm not prepared to address. He is both prepared to address, and he would be willing to come if we have future interactive meetings like this with the public and with council. He's willing to come and share his expertise. And one of the things that he talked about with the uncertainty of sea level rise in terms of what it will look like and over what period of time, he talked about designing a park that can change over time. And so tonight's proposal, Alan, actually you'll be pleased to hear this. Tonight's proposal is to adopt the idea from the Parks and Open Space Board at their January 8th, 2020 meeting. The board discussed elements that could be added to the site after demolition to make the park functional and attractive to residents while the final plan is being developed. So I tonight say, let's implement their recommendation. So the next couple of slides I'm going to show that have to do with next steps, I must say I relied upon my daughter Ariel, who has the expertise in this area. And so the next steps really would be, once those two giant machines are through clearing, which could be any day now, we go through a phase of ground preparation, very essential, of basically clean the dirt, clear the site of all the rocks, debris, and weeds. Do a first rough grade, add some topsoil, do another grade after that. Put some sod or turf grass, as it's known, get it delivered and installed. As far as irrigation, it could be an irrigation system, but that would be costly, and we could probably discuss the possibility of just using sprinklers placed on top after the sodding. Allow a good 30 days for that grass to take hold before opening, and then add, depending on how the discussion goes, you can add limited amenities that would be there on a temporary basis and would not interfere with the permanent design. Ariel did go out and actually got some quotes on different options, depending on what kind of grass would be put down. And I don't need to get into the details here, but I think you can see that it doesn't have to be a big ticket item to get sod put on this place. Now, it doesn't include delivery or installation, which of course will add to that. So what are the benefits of this temporary approach? The park is open quickly and in a way that allows for all permanent options for use and design to remain open during the ongoing public input phase and while the civil engineering components move further along. From stormwater and resiliency point of view, there's immediate relief due to the addition of 3/4 of an acre of open space with floodplain or stormwater management. It's a minimum budget. Is there precedent for taking this kind of approach? Absolutely. This is exactly what was done with 401 Hampton Lane. We had a workshop where residents gave their input. Further input was received on an ongoing basis. But within several weeks after that workshop, there was sod put on that on a Saturday. It was actually at that time when the community could get together, people put the sod down as a community building exercise. So really, this is what we can have. Alan, I think I can beat your timeline. You talked about the middle of September. If you take this approach, we can do this, if there's no hurricane, in 45 days. Thank you, and that's it.
All right, Madam Council Member, I don't see anyone else listed for public comment.
Okay, I would like to, as follow-up here, I would like to ask Jake and or Andrea. Joanne, did you want to speak? Because I saw your hand earlier and you haven't. Pete, could you unmute Joanne Young, please? Because I know she was interested in speaking.
Young? All right. Ms. Young, please state your name and address for the record.
Joanne Young, across the street at 600 Harbor Drive, and I'm a 40-year resident of Key Biscayne. And I'm so glad that I got on this chat today and I heard all these wonderful comments. I'm so excited about the park being across the street. I'm excited about all the comments that I've heard, especially my neighbors. I'm certainly for a passive park like the one on Hampton. Please be sensitive to the surrounding areas of Harbor Drive, and please let us be a part of the process. I want to thank Zaira for letting me know about this meeting. And Katie, I want to thank you for handling this today. And Louis, I enjoyed your comments. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you so much. If there's anything I can do to help you, I would be more than happy. I have a green thumb. I have a lot of plants in my house and in my yard, and I'm right across the street from the park. And I'm so excited about the park being developed as quickly as I am hearing tonight. And I'm so glad that there's no buildings and concrete structures across the street from me. So thank you all. I'm so excited about it. So that's all I have to say. So thank you again.
Madam Council Member, we do have one more speaker, Ms. Catalina Maria. Ms. Catalina Maria, please state your name and address for the record.
Hello. Hi. One sec. Oh, okay. Good. Hello? Sorry. I think there's a really weird echo here. I'm gonna move.
Lower your speakers.
Okay. Yeah, here. I had AirPods for a second. But yeah, thank you to everyone. And thank you to Councilperson Petros for arranging this meeting. I'm very grateful that we have the opportunity to all engage in this way. I'm also a resident of 370 West McIntyre Street. And I'm 23 years old. I grew up my entire life on Key Biscayne. I've lived here for 19 years, and then I went to school in California. Now I'm back. And one of the things that I loved about California was how seriously they took their green space and how forward-thinking they were in environmentalism. And I love that we're doing that here on Key Biscayne. And the idea of having a passive pocket park so close to my house is something that I value, and I know that I will cherish and that everyone else will cherish too. One thing that I do notice is an issue with a lot of environmental movements is that sometimes the community isn't taken into account. So I think having that balance between wanting something that with a resiliency aspect that also takes community members into account and values their opinions and input is really valuable. So I think as long as there's continued transparency throughout this entire process and we have a beautiful park that we can all enjoy to go do yoga or kick a soccer ball the way I always did when I was a kid here, I think would be a really amazing thing. And yeah, I'm glad. I think there's been a lot of talk about like the rush and the 45 days and everything. And I think that's a great, I love that kind of energy and that passion, and people want to get it done fast. And I know someone was saying that like great was getting in the way of good, but even good things take time. So I don't think we should let the rush and the push of the fast, let's just get this out of the way, get in the way of making something truly incredible. So that was my 2 cents, and thank you for letting me speak. And I hope that everyone is staying safe during these kind of surreal, weird times.
Thank you, Catalina. I appreciate it. Is there anyone else that's raised their hand or wishes to speak before I ask our Andrea, our administration, Andrea and Jake, to answer a few questions as a wrap up?
Madam Councilmember, I don't see anyone else.
Okay. I'm hoping that you guys can speak to some of these things, which is starting with, I think there was great consensus about the idea of getting this park operational so that people can use it, and then talk about a bigger, more comprehensive plan with community input. So I would like to ask you, how quickly do you think you can get this open? What should the community expect to see when it is open? And then also, Jake, if you could just tell people exactly what these pumps do, the current technology for pumps. This is not phase 1, but I just wanted, there was enough concern about pumps. If you could give an explanation to everybody, if this was considered in this area, what it would look like to people above ground and what they would hear or not hear.
Yes, council member. So this, again, we're not there yet. We don't know what kind of pump, what size, what capacity they're all to be determined. But what I can tell you is that the current technology on submersible pumps, they're as loud as Toyota Prius front electric. So they're extremely quiet and below our ambient noise levels. So noise pollution would not be a concern.
Can you, when you state the noise level, do you have any example that people can relate to? I mean, is it they won't hear anything at all? Are they going to hear a hum, or would they hear an actual noise that would kick on and off?
If you're nearby, you could hear it, but if you're probably at home and your windows or doors are closed, you're not going to hear it. But we can find some examples and send out to residents. But again, we are far away from determining what type of pump. And even if there's loud pumps, there are mitigations that you could do. It's soundproof. So we have all the options available in our tool belt, and we can use it to please the residents.
Okay, so maybe one of the takeaways is as we go forward, and if we have budgeted funds, and this is part of the long-range vision of the park, that we make sure that we have examples and samples for people in the area so they have an understanding. And then the second thing has to do with the timeline and what to expect as far as an opening, let's say a usable space for the community.
So I'll take the first pass at that. I think Jake and I will sit down tomorrow morning, or perhaps after this workshop, and take a look at where we are with the demo and what scenarios, if we simply regraded and laid down the sod and didn't do anything else, how quickly we could deliver that. And but I think if we may, Councilmember Petros, if you could give us till tomorrow to just kind of digest the feedback we've heard, and then maybe tomorrow or Friday we can share with the council and with the community where we've landed.
You're gonna hear my dogs bark, so I apologize. People are coming into the house. That's fine. I would say though, I think you had sort of a timeline in place for phase 1. And I don't know if it's been delayed or not.
It has. It's been delayed.
And what are the reasons for our delay? Is it this meeting or what's going on?
Yeah, so we were just, like I said, we were just planning to try to make it usable, but we welcome the feedback, and it's not a negative thing to be a little bit delayed. That's fine. We'll get back on track. I think the feedback we got tonight was great, and it will definitely inform any phase 2 initiative for the park. But I do need to sit down with Jake and Dr. Samimi and figure out where we are and what's the quickest path to, or not. Well, I think that the best path, what's in the best interest of the village at this point.
Okay. Well, thank you. I want to again thank everybody for participating. Luis, do you want to say something before we leave?
Yes, thank you, Katie. Well, thank you personally. You are the workhorse of this council and village clerk search that we concluded, and on this, I thank you for the time. I know that you have work and family and everything else, and it's wonderful. I just want to leave this thought with the neighbors. First of all, do you reaffirm my faith? What I've been trying to say for a year and a half. I've been here 40 years. And 28 years ago, I chaired the committee that created the village. And I was on the first council. I ran again because we had drifted a little bit away from what we dreamed 28 years ago. And one of the things I've been consistent on, there's so much talent in this community that if just tap them and volunteer. The gentleman spoke before, we go out and hire consultants, and we go off into California and every place else. We're right here in our little village. We have not only talented people, but people who volunteer their time and expertise. And the proof of that in parks is the one that was just completed under the leadership of Dr. Simon. So I commend you for that. The other side, though, going back to our foundation, in my dream of trying to, rekindle that Key Biscayne nice, there's nothing nicer than to say thank you to people. And we fought at the creation to make sure there was not a division in this community between condominium side and residential side. I noticed most of you are in the immediate area of the park. And that's wonderful because we can get the best advice from you. But every once in a while, as you go around your life, social and Key Biscayne, say thank you to the other taxpayers who are on the other side, that it was their money also that helped us get this park. It's just a small, seemingly insignificant way, but we need to start getting to thank each other. And sometimes you have to carry a burden a little bit for the other side and the other side for you. And that's why we created this as one unit. And so whenever you can, thank anybody else that you may know about this wonderful investment. I think it's absolutely lifts my spirit to know how much talent there is out there, and we can tap and get this done right away. And I look forward to acquiring more green space for our island. I think it's the best thing we can do with our money, and hopefully this will be something you'll be proud of. And I thank you for your participation, Katie, again, for leading this effort. They cleared the air a little bit, and we're on the right path now, I think.
All right, thank you. Bernardo, I think you had your hand up. Do you want to say something else?
No, again, I just want to say thank you very much. I was so glad to see all of my family participating. Obviously, you can see this. We're pretty passionate folks here. But thank you, Council Member Petros, for this. And we, I guess what we're, a lot of people have watched Hamilton recently. We, in a way, we want to be in the room where it happens. So, I know there's going to be some important decisions to be made, especially on this topic of resiliency that, not everybody's necessarily an expert. And I know we have some experts. So I did have the question whether we've done a catch basin for stormwater. If we have some of those, I mean, I've seen the pumps in the village. I really haven't seen the catch basins as a resiliency item in the village. There may be some, but obviously that's something that I really want to, get to understand before, there's one in next door to my room. So yeah, I mean, we don't have to talk about this now, but obviously that will be one of the questions that we will have later on, and yeah, make sure that we're in the room where it happens.
Absolutely. I hear you, and I thank you all again. And I think this concludes the meeting. So everybody go enjoy the rest of your evening. And please continue to contact us as you have concerns, and we'll try to make this feel comfortable going forward. Thank you. Bye.